We are thrilled to have this guy on the Jay and Dan podcast, presented by McDonald's. It is Mr. Tom Green, the pride of Ottawa, Ontario. Tom, first of all, how are you doing? And how's everybody doing in LA? It's our old city, so we worry about the Angelinos.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Thanks for having me on the show. You know, we linked up on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
We were on Twitter. I retweeted something of yours, and now I'm on the show. Can you believe it? That's amazing the way the world works. Right? We're in the future.
Well,
I'm
it's
here.
funny, Tom. I
Yeah,
was just going to say, sorry to interrupt you, but it was really, what I love is that it was really fans of yours and fans of ours thought we would get along. It's almost like being set up on a date, because
yeah.
on Twitter, it was like, you guys, you should be on their show. And I love that. I agree with you. I love that that's the way it is now with social media. That's the positive side of social media.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's cool because I do a podcast as well, and this is my little podcast studio that I've built here. And see, I can cut cameras. See, I've created I've created a thing where I can cut cameras. And see, I went to Algonquin College and studied broadcasting, Jay. So I learned how to plug cameras in and music and all this stuff. So that's how I've been kind of keeping myself busy during the pandemic here. I've been pretty much quarantined myself at home in LA and doing my podcast. So it's but we were talking right before we went live, and I was saying, you know, it was starting to kind of look like it was ending here in Los Angeles, and then they opened up too early, and now everybody's, you know, we're back in trouble down here. So hopefully up there in Toronto and up in Canada, people don't get complacent and don't get too eager to get out, because it can come back quick.
You can understand it though, right, Tom? I mean, it's an entertainment industry town. People want to get out. They want to be entertained. They want to do stuff, and mostly they want to get production going.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the drive down. So I guess you can understand the eagerness, but
yeah, well, and LA's not even the worst of it. I mean, in Florida and Texas, it's really come back with a vengeance. So, you know, I've been quarantined and isolating more than anybody, even more than my friends here. I just, you know, they kind of think it's, you know, it's gotten a little weird, Jay. It's gotten a little weird. Like I haven't left my house in 2 months, actually. I have not left. I have had my groceries delivered. The last time I left my house was 2 months ago, when and at that point I hadn't left in 6 weeks, but I got invited to go on Joe Rogan's podcast, who's my friend, and he does it down the street. So I drove over, did his podcast, came back home, haven't left since. So if your podcast was in town, I would have left the house to go to your podcast too, Jay. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, but okay, there's so much I want to get to. You mentioned Algonquin College, and my colleague Dan O'Toole is taking some time off. He's not here, but he also is a graduate like yourself of Algonquin College. So he's always very proud that you both graduated from that institution. But Dan cannot hook up. He could barely hook up this tiny home studio we have here. So I'm amazed. Did you take a different, like the smart track, and he was in the dumb track at Algonquin? Because it seems like you just got more out of it than he did.
You know, it's always what you choose that you're in. I've always been into techie making. I started out making beats when I was a teenager, like music, hip hop beats, and I was in a rap group, and I made beats, and I liked plugging in all the cables and doing all the sampling and all of that stuff. And so then I got really into video cameras, and so I mean the early years of my TV show was all about going out and doing these videos, and I would edit them all myself, because I kind of realized nobody would ever really give me a job on television unless I figured out how to do it myself and make it myself. So that's kind of how I got into this, was being a bit of a techie video nerd, you know? So,
well, if anything, Tom, I want to pay you a massive compliment. When we started doing our show from home, when the pandemic hit, you know, and it was us, and then it was all the big talk shows in the States, you know, the Fallons, the Kimmels, and everything. I thought of you, and I instantly thought of Tom Green's House Tonight, which was a show you did, I think it was mid-aughts. Somewhere mid-aughts, perhaps, somewhere in there.
Early 2000s.
It was essentially,
Yeah.
Early 2000s. Yeah, and we got it up here on Global, and I remember just watching it and loving it. I remember seeing the late great Fred Willard drive up to your house, and it must have been so surreal. But all I could think about when everyone started doing their show from home is, well, Tom did that like 15 years ago. Essentially, you were a trailblazer.
Yeah, yeah. Now everybody's forced to do it from their home. Yeah, it's. I've had the same thought because I see all the big talk show hosts now doing the Skype calls, and I go, oh, okay, well, it's just kind of everybody's doing that now. But it was an exciting time back in the early days of the web streaming, and I've always, like I said, been into technology, so I jumped on it and started plugging cameras in and things like that. In this house, it was in the other room, but we had the studio out there, and we did the show for about almost 10 years out there, so it was cool. But the best thing about it, it wasn't called podcasting at the time, but it was essentially a podcast. They hadn't come up with the name podcast yet back in 2003, but you know, it was a podcast, and I would invite all my favorite comedians up. Joe Rogan was one of them. We, you know, and I remember when Joe came up, you know, Joe and I got into this conversation. He hadn't started his podcast yet, but he was doing a lot of really cool stuff on the web, and we started talking. He said, you know what, this is the way to do it. You cut out the advertisers, and so he's sort of been really very cool with, you know, sort of crediting that moment when he came and saw my studio with kind of what put the bug in his ear to build a TV studio in his house. And look what's happened to him. He's gone on to be the biggest success in the history of the internet and broadcasting, and it's amazing. So it's a pretty exciting time for broadcasting. It's obviously, you know, not a great time for the rest of the world, but you know, it is interesting time for technology. Can you imagine if we were going through this pandemic and we weren't able to do what we're doing right now, and you know, everybody just had to go home and there was no television, and you know, it would be a lot harder, right? It'd be a lot harder. So technology is definitely making it easier, at least to get through this horrible time in our world.
Well, we're doing our TV show every night, and I'm shooting it on my iPhone. It's incredible. I still every night I can't believe it. You know, and people say, you know, can't believe the quality, right?
Do you worry that maybe when the pandemic
just wouldn't have had that capability?
Yeah. Do you worry when the pandemic ends that the network's going to say, you know what, we don't really need to pay for these studios anymore. Why don't you just keep doing it on your iPhone? That's fine. You can just stay at home.
I will say I was worried about it until they started to give me feedback.
Yeah.
On me doing my own makeup. And then I realized that eventually they would send me back. So, because you can only have this across the nation for so long, Tom. You can only have it for so long.
It's nice to have somewhere to go.
You got to get those. No, I agree with you. Yeah, and there's a rush to live television, as you know, that it's different than when you're taping. You know, we're doing it live to tape from home, so it's a little bit different. Oh, look at that close up! Wow, look at that shot.
Yeah, I got a close up. See, got a close up.
Is that a pandemic beard, or is that just a permanent beard you're rocking all the time?
Let's see here. It's kind of like my permanent beard. Yeah, this is actually pretty much my beard, the way my beard always is. But yeah, but you like that? I can zoom as well. I can zoom. It's fun.
Look at that. I'm just curious why it took you so long to put this beautiful elaborate studio together, because as you said, you are such a techie.
Well, you know, I had been doing my show for many years here, and then the last decade or so, though, since about, you know, I sort of stopped doing the show from my house, and I've been on the road doing stand-up for the last 10 years. So I've been traveling all over the world, and really the last decade, I've kind of been focusing on stand-up comedy and loving that. But the pandemic, you know, ended all live performance, and you know, nobody's touring anymore. There's no live shows. There's no congregating. Obviously, you know this. We all know this. So I've been back at home, and I just thought, you know, I'd dust off the old cameras and fire up podcast again. So it's kind of got me back into my podcasting roots.
And I remember you also did a talk show on MTV for a while. And I always remember you got a review after the first show. I think it was from the New York Times even, and they described you as having the energy of a young David Letterman. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was an amazing. Man, it was an amazing experience. I mean, that show just kind of took off like a rocket. I'd been doing it in Canada for years on Rogers Cable, and then about 2 years before MTV picked it up, it was picked up in the first year of the Comedy Network. and that was really exciting. And, you know, like here I was, my friends and I from broadcasting school, we made the show, we got picked up by the Comedy Network, but we never really, you know, I never really anticipated it exploding the way it did on MTV. I don't think I really understood the power of MTV. We didn't really, you know, we have much music in Canada, but MTV in the late 90s, 1999, when my show went on there, was at its peak, and everybody watched MTV. There was no video on the internet yet. And so, you know, it was a pretty exciting time for sure in my life. You know, within weeks of being on that show, I was actually invited on the David Letterman show. I got to guest host Letterman. I got to host Saturday Night Live. It was a crazy time, and certainly very exciting, and more than I'd ever kind of dreamed of happening. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
And then stand-up, you mentioned stand-up. Did it come easy to you, Tom, when you started? Was it something
you kind
of fell into?
You know, I did stand-up before everything when I was a teenager. I started doing stand-up at Yuck Yucks in Ottawa when I was 16 years old. And I did it before the original show. And I hadn't done it in a few years, but then when I got back into it, it really just kind of instantly clicked. I couldn't really, honestly, it was kind of kicking myself that I hadn't been doing it all along, that I'd stopped doing it. But I had been so focused on the TV show for so many years, I just wasn't going out and hitting the clubs. But the thing about Los Angeles is such an amazing place for stand-up comedy. It's like New York and Los Angeles are really the two sort of hubs for stand-up comedy in the world. You've got the Comedy Store here, you've got the Laugh Factory, you've got the Improv, you've got the Ice House, you've got really great comedy clubs in LA, and all the top comedians in the world are jumping up and performing every night. So any night of the week I can go down and tell jokes here in Los Angeles, and it's really kind of I mean, it's a scary time, I think, for comedy right now. I mean, obviously for the whole world, and we're, you know, I feel weird sort of making, you know, it about comedy because this is so much bigger than comedy. But, you know, just in my personal perspective of, you know, having the opportunity to go down and jump up on stage at the Comedy Store every night of the week, you know, whenever I want, and tell jokes, and which is the ground zero for stand-up. You know, everyone from every comedian from Richard Pryor to Letterman to, you know, Carlin to all the great comics of history performed there. So, you know, hopefully this pandemic ends soon and we can get these clubs open, because clubs all over the world, all over the Canada and the US are really kind of suffering right now. You know, it's going to be hard for a lot of these independent comedy clubs and independent restaurants and things like that to stay afloat if this keeps going on. So hopefully we can get out of this and get back to some sort of semi sense of normal soon.
Some sort of normalcy would be good. How often do you get home, Tom? Before pre-pandemic, of course. How often did you get home?
Well, like I was saying, I was touring so much that I would be in a different city every weekend. Pretty much, you know, 2 or 3 weekends a month, I'd be in a different part of the country. So I was always up in Canada, you know, performing every city in Canada. Whenever I was within, you know, shooting distance of Ottawa, I'd pop back into Ottawa and see my family, and my parents are there and my brother's there. I've got a lot of friends there. So I was in Canada a lot. You know, like I said, I perform all over Canada every year. So that's actually been a strange thing about this pandemic, is just being in one place for so long. I haven't been home for 2 months like this in years. So,
hey, you mentioned the hip hop group you were in. That would, of course, be Organized Rhyme. How often do you get asked about Organized Rhyme?
I get asked about it quite a bit, actually, because I've done. Yeah, it's funny, you know. Not just by Canadians, even though it was only released in Canada, but on the internet. I've done some, you know, rapping and some goofy videos with different rappers that I've had on my podcast, and so people kind of bring it up sometimes. It's a lot of fun. That's you know, actually my new podcast that I'm doing now, it's called the Tom Green Podcast, Jay. That's the name I came up with. I'm having on a lot of interesting heroes of mine from the world of hip hop. I just had Ice-T on the show, and I had the legendary and incredible Ice-T. Also had Be Real from Cypress Hill on, and
wow.
So it's pretty cool. That's what I love about podcasting. I get to, talk to people who I grew up inspired by. MC Search from Third Base also was on the show. So
I
if you're
wondered if Third Base was a big influence on you. The gas face.
absolutely, yeah. If you're an old school hip hop head, then you're going to want to check out the Tom Green podcast because I'm having a lot of fun old school rappers on the show, which is cool. But
did you have? Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask you if you had the Ice-T Power album with his wife on it, and she had the bikini. Yeah, that was a great album, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was sort of my era of discovering rap music with Public Enemy, Ice-T,
yes,
Tribe Called Quest, and Beastie
Cool
Boys,
Mo
and
D,
Run DMC, and all of those.
Beasties.
Yeah.
Yeah. KRS-One.
Oh yeah.
Boogie Down Productions. Yeah, that was all great stuff. Are you still listen to as much hip hop now?
I do, yeah, I do. I even like the new hip hop. A lot of times, old school rap enthusiasts don't love the new music, but I do. I like a lot of the new music too. So, but I have a pretty broad spectrum of music. I listen to all sorts of everything. If I have Alexa, right? So I like Alexa. So I'll usually either go to, David Bowie or Joy Division or Lil Skies or Juice World. Rest in peace. I really like Juice World a lot. I was really kind of, really sad when that happened because I'd been listening to Juice World a lot before he passed away this year. So.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, Tom, I'm just enjoying a Bose Lug Tread here because
nice.
I do remember you collaborated with Bose, right, on a Tom Green beer. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
A tasty beverage. Now, is beer still your cocktail of choice, or what are you enjoying these days?
Yeah, I love the Bose, the Tom Green beer. It's available in seasonal flavors. So it's a summer stout, is out now. Which one are you drinking? Do you have the can there with you, or you?
I've got their classic Lug Tread today.
Oh, you're drinking the Lug Tread?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because they've got the summer stout and then they've got a cherry stout Tom Green beer, and go check them out. Bose.ca, BEAUS.ca, and they're a great Canadian craft brewery just outside of Ottawa from Van Cleek Hill, Ontario, and they're really, really great brewery, and I've had my beer with them for, almost 10 years, probably about 8 years now, and it's a lot of fun being in the beer business. It's done really well, and it's been becoming sort of one of their mainstay, brands that they have on their brewery. So it's been pretty cool. All across Canada.
You're right. I remember I bought Sixpack in Edmonton once.
Man, that must have been fun, huh? Anytime you're buying a Sixpack in Edmonton, you're about to have a party.
You're gonna have a good time. Yeah, you're gonna have.
Oh yeah, bud. Oh yeah. We're getting her done there tonight there in Edmonton there, eh? Oh, yeah, bud. Go out to an Oilers game there, eh, bud? Have a six-pack of Molson Canadians there, eh? I don't know who the sponsors are. Who are the sponsors? I don't want to say the wrong beer.
Well, it's McDonald's. It's McDonald's. So,
McDonald's. A six-pack and a Big Mac there. Go to an Oilers game there, bud. We're going to get her done there, AJ. Oh yeah,
maybe you go to Yuck Yucks on Bourbon Street in the West Edmonton Mall. You go see Tom Green do some stand-up.
Absolutely.
Okay, I got some. Just to let you go, my friend, I got 3 questions from hardcore fans of yours who work with us at TSN. Tom, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
The first one comes from one of our producers, Rob Dunn. And he asked, and I think you've gotten this question before, what was Phil Giroux drinking in his mug? What was Phil drinking in his mug?
It's a good question. I talked to Phil today, and Phil and I are still very close, good friends, old friends. And, he was always drinking something in the mug in the background. I can't say that it was always coffee, because it probably wasn't. But it was most likely beer, actually. Phil's a beer drinker, so it was most likely beer. Mm-hmm.
Like I think people would be really happy to hear that you talked to Phil today and that you guys are still so close. And what is it? Isn't that just something about your oldest friends, right? They know everything about you. There's no pretension or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Phil's the best, and he's on social media. Go find Phil, and he's hilarious as ever. Yeah.
Okay, next question comes from Scott Hempstead, and it is this. What kind of music would HipHop Woman be working on these days? What kind of music would HipHop Woman be
HipHop
working on
Woman,
these
yeah.
days?
HipHop
Yeah.
Woman was a very strange sort of surreal piece of video that we basically made back in the day on the Tom Green show before it was on MTV, where I essentially just ran down the street in a dress with a wig on and like slathered myself with shaving cream or something like that. While we had some hip hop beats playing. Hip hop woman. What kind of hip hop would she be working on? Oh, geez, I don't know. I don't even know if it would be classified as hip hop. It would just be kind of industrial music, probably industrial
Right.
music.
Right, like Front 242 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or
Wow. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And if you want to, by the way, see what we're talking about, you can Google or go to YouTube and type in Hip Hop Woman, or go to tomgreen.com/YouTube, or no, youtube.com/Tom Green, rather.
Yes.
And all of those old videos are on there. And that's also where I do this show as well. It goes on there, and also in audio format everywhere you can get podcasts. So I would encourage everybody watching to go subscribe to my YouTube channel, because there's a lot of really goofy stuff going on there. I take phone calls, I take Skype calls from viewers, and it's a lot of fun. So go check it out and subscribe. Thanks.
Yes, yes. Hit the subscribe button.
Yes.
For the Tom Green YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, Google, and throw in Tom Green in there, and you'll find it. Here's the last question for you, Tom Green.
Yeah.
Can Glenn Huplick skateboard? If so, is he better than Phil Giroux? Can Glenn Huplick skateboard? If so, is he better than Phil Giroux?
Well,
that's from Dave Cotterell.
Well, Glenn would not mind me saying this, that Phil is a better skateboarder. Phil is an amazing skateboarder, actually. Phil Giroux and I met through skateboarding when I was probably 14 years old, and he was, he's a year and a half older than me. We were kids, and I had a quarter pipe in front of my house that I'd built, and Phil skated by and saw it. We started skating my quarter pipe, and that was 35 years ago, and we've been skating ever since. And every time Phil and I get together, we always go out and hit the skateboard. But I would tell you, though, that Glenn is probably a much more regular TSN watcher than Phil, because Glenn is a big sports fan, big CFL fan, big CFL fan.
And we're hoping, my friend, we're not sure if that league is going to be up and running this year, but we're crossing our fingers for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're
go Red Blacks.
Red Black. Yeah,
go Red Blacks.
You know what a
go
success
Senators.
Story.
You see my Senators jersey on the wall behind me, by the way. I should have showed you that. Let me see if I can pan over to that.
Get it?
There's not a light on it, but there we go. There it is right there. There it is. There it is.
Is it Peter Sidorkowitz?
There we go.
Who is it?
Signed by everybody on the team. They sent the team sent. I should have a light on it right now, but I don't. But I didn't cut to it. There we go. There you go. See?
There it is.
There we go. I thought I was. Yeah. There you go. So I was panning around, but yeah, it's at the back of the room there. But actually, very nicely placed on the wall there. So, but yeah, the Senators.
What was that poster there, Tom? What was that poster you had?
That's Freddie Got Fingered. Freddie Got Fingered as well. Yep. Yeah.
That, of course, is your feature film that was absolutely hilarious. That's another thing I was hoping to ask you about, the concept of the cult status for a movie that maybe wasn't as appreciated as it should have been when it came out. Do you get people coming up and telling you how much they love that film? Because I remember watching it for the first time myself and thinking it was fantastic.
Oh, yeah. It's really actually become one of the things that I get asked about the most is Freddie Got Fingered, because when it came out, of course, the critics were not kind. Some were, but most weren't. But now, 20 years later, the movie came out in 2001, I guess. So almost 20 years. I think it's really got a really kind of a little strong cult following now. And there was a line in it where I said, "Daddy, would you like some sausage? Yes. Daddy, would you like some sausage?" Okay, it was a little song that I did. And honestly, not a day goes by when I leave my house that somebody, doesn't matter where I am in the world, somebody will come up to me and say, "Daddy, would you like some sausage?" So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. You've done well for yourself, Tom Green. You really have.
Well, I'm happy to be still kind of doing what I love. I wish we, weren't going through this horrible time right now in our world. Everybody is suffering right now with people are out of work and people are getting sick, and it's really, I almost feel bad talking about how I'm, gotten to do what I love right now. I really, really worry more about what everyone else is going through and what we're all going through collectively as a society, because it's a scary time. And it's really I've been thinking a lot about Canada and how lucky we are to how lucky you are to be in Canada. I'm not in Canada, but I think how lucky my parents are to be in Canada and living here in the United States right now with everything being as divided as it is. You can really see how much of an impact that's had on the response to this virus. The division down here is really, really polarized, because of politics. And I know we have political differences in Canada. I don't like to talk about politics, but I know we have them. But it's just not the same division that we have down here. And it's really, really kind of focused me on thinking, how proud I am to be a Canadian, and how lucky I am to have Canada as a place to have grown up. And I think a lot about maybe coming back to Canada someday soon, because it's a scary time, and you want to be close to your friends and family when we go through these kinds of things. So, I'm wishing you well. I'm wishing everybody in Canada well, and be safe, and don't get complacent with this virus too quick, because I have friends on Facebook, and I see there's still some people in Canada who don't want to wear a mask and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. And I just think, I don't know. I just think it's probably better to be safe than sorry at this point, and try to kind of flatten this curve, or whatever they say, and let's get through this and get back to sort of a semi-normal way of life as soon as we can.
Well said, my friend, and it really also warms my heart that when you say sorry, you still have a Canadian accent.
Oh yeah, bud. Oh yeah. I'm not sorry about that there, bud. Oh, way there, bud. We get her done. Sorry.
Tom, keep giving her. Just keep giving her, and keep doing what you're doing. And really love the way you spoke there. Very empathetic, and it just shows the kind of person you are. And that's why I think everyone loves you so much up here. So continued success. Stay safe. Stay at home. Keep doing that podcast. Check out Tom's YouTube channel. Go to YouTube. Type Tom Green. Check out all the great Tom Green stuff. Go check out his podcast. Multiple cameras.
Multicam. Yeah.
Posters. Ottawa Senators jerseys. Tom's looking great. It was great having you on the show, my friend. And stay safe. And hopefully we can talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it. Thanks, TSN. Thank you, everybody watching. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time.